one of the things I'm going to let you guys know that I do is I have this little tiny container. And when I mix my paints, I put, this is just about 2 tablespoons of water. And I want to let you know this because for those of you who are trying to learn to blend thin colors and feather, glazing, those sort of things. Hello, George. Hi, Mish. How are you doing? This may help you in your performance of your paint. So I use a little bit of paint extender. The technical term is paint retarder. I put 1 milliliter of that per about exactly 5 teaspoons, if you want me to get really exact, of water. And I put it in a teeny tiny container. And this is what I use for mixing my paints. I want to let you know that because it really does help, especially.
They didn't see that.
Oh, because
there.
You can get them on Amazon, okay, these little containers like this. You can also use those little plastic shot glasses. I tip them over all the time. This one's really heavy. It's made out of glass. It is designed for acetone when you are doing acrylic nails. And it comes in super handy because it's weighted, so it keeps itself nice on the palette. All right. Especially when you are using transparent colors, I can tell you from experience, you will be really happy that you made that mixture up. I find that it really does help keep the consistency of the paint. Instead of the paint breaking, it really keeps the paint together well. Although the Reaper paints are made very well and it takes a lot to make them break, still, it helps. Oh, what is this? A Galden does have the hat. Oh.
Is it Galden with the hat?
Yes. All right. So that's what I wanted to show you. So we are going to, this is a more animated form of painting, okay, utilizing complementary colors, both complementary in, yes, they look good together, and on the opposite side of the color wheel. We are currently using Reaper paints, and if we start with just the hair, the eyes and the skin, and then move our way around from there, we are not painting this one, okay? We are painting this one. And you should have found in the instructions that priming black and then doing a zenithal highlighting would be very helpful. I am using, to paint the entire mini, I will be using 16 different paints. And what I wanted to let you guys know is if you have your mini painted black and so you got it primered and you need to do the zenithal highlighting, it can be done with a little bit of white ink and a soft brush. So this one is done with an airbrush. This one is done with white ink. It's painted. The primer is all painted on this one. And then we use white ink for the zenithal highlighting. So if for some reason it's too cold to go rattle can, you don't have an airbrush, I want to let you know you can achieve zenithal highlighting just through using a very soft brush. Let me show you the brush, okay? This is the brush. It does not need to be, this is a terribly expensive sable, okay? You do not need that. This is just the one that I happen to have. You can get a watercolor brush. You want the bristles to be not too long. If they drag, they'll make streaks. You want them short, and you want the brush to be kind of puffy, and you want the brush to be soft. Something I found while I was actually organizing from the move was this old makeup brush. So something like this, with the nice soft watercolor-like bristles on it, that's very bendable, and you want it to be a little puffy like that. You can just if it's already been an oily makeup, I don't recommend it, but they're fairly inexpensive. You can get some of these at the dollar store, and they make amazing zenithal highlighters. And then white ink. Okay.
Would a makeup brush work then? It's soft.
Yes, as long as it is not a scrubber, you need something soft like a blender. A blender would be best. You want it to be nice and soft on the end so that when you are applying the ink, you butterfly kiss like a butterfly wing very, very gently when you're doing this. So if the brush is stiff, it's going to make these draggy marks, and it can scratch up your primer if it's too stiff. And then I use, for doing that zenithal highlighting, I use the Liquitiex white. The other one that I really like is Dealer Rowney. This is ink, okay? Pure ink. All right? So in case you do want to do the zenithal highlighting on yours, it's easy enough to do. If you'd like, I did actually keep one that is not primered that I can show you that on. It is important when you do it that you be careful not to, it's like dry brushing, only you're going to leave a tiny bit more moisture on the brush when you do it. And you're going to touch really super lightly. It's a good idea to have like a little base nearby that you have primed black also, so that you can test how much ink you have. I use black gloves. That's how right there, that was me doing the zenithal highlighting last night for everybody that was out there that was coming to the class today. We were trying to get a little bit ahead of the game. So I use a black glove, and then that way I can see like that's too much. Okay, could I go back to my paper towel, take a little bit more off, come back, try again. When I get it right about like that, then I know it's just perfect. If it's less than that, then it's already starting to dry. Ink dries very quickly. So as you are gently kissing the miniature with the brush, and air is moving around it, and in a few strokes you'll see that it starts to dissipate. And as the ink starts to dissipate, that's when you want to move down onto the other little detailed areas just to get a little bit of gray. You see how what I did? I just, so that you could see all the details, because they get lost. Once you've primed it all the same color on these little bitty bodies, their bodies are so tiny you lose the detail. So part of catching the dynamics in your chibi is also to be able to see what details there are. If you can't see them when you're working on it, they get lost, mostly in shadow, or maybe painted over sometimes because their details are super tiny. So this is how I pick out, mind you, I'm building the white here. And then once it's just a little bit on the brush, I'll come down a little farther on the body. For this part, I mix a little black, a little white, and I do the same thing, kind of a darkish gray. And then I do a light brushing, a dry brushing around here just to pick out all these little details. That way you don't lose them as you're painting. And I'm sure a lot of you have. Now, we may not make it through this whole list, but here's what I want to let you know. Tomorrow at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I will be broadcasting my regular time on Twitch, Captain Madlove, and we are going to pick up where we left off. So whatever we don't get done today, and there will be a VOD from that. If you miss it, perhaps you work tomorrow, there will be a VOD, and that will go to Captain Madlove's YouTube. So you will be able to catch the rest of this. I cannot paint an entire miniature in an hour and a half. Unless I was dipping, then I might be able to do it. All right. Now, I will show you one that I have taken a little Sophie. And, uh-oh.
That's me.
I have taken a little Sophie. And I have painted her in full for you so that you could see what happens when you use bold, complementary colors, tiny highlights. Her hair still needs a little more work, and I left the eyes undone so that I could show you the eyeball. There's a process to this. Notice that I left hers undone so we could start from the beginning. And here little Sophie has all the little details picked out. But as you move down the body, generally, the big dynamics of your chibi are going to run from about the waist up in most chibis. And so keeping the eye pulled towards that area, like for example, painting her pants red, would eliminate all the work you're going to do on her face and her eyes and her hair. And these cute little breasts she has with this little armor top that she's got on. And so doing something like that will detract from it if you get too much going on. In the case of somebody like this wizard, you'll notice he has a lot of extremely bold colors. But notice that orange being in the middle, and then it has the blue and it has the purple, which are both complementary, giving it an even stronger effect. But then the orange frames the blue eyes. The type of eyes that this particular chibi has are what we call human style chibi eyes. These are more difficult. We are not going to do these today. These take a bit of time and a bit of training. Not that you can't do it, you totally can. It's just a more human-like eye in a chibi's face. Still yet having the chibi effect, which is that generally speaking, most of your chibis, you're going to find that the eyeball iris is about 50% of the eye, unlike a human eye. He is keeping that chibi effect by having 50%, sometimes a little more, taken up of the eyeball, but having the human shape to them, and also the striations, as you notice. And multiple highlights that are not just the round highlights that you normally see in chibi eyes. All right, then, let's get started. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to block, okay? So we're going to put some colors out on the palette. That's going to be our first thing. Always black and white, okay? Always got to put some black, got to put some white on the palette. Over here, you can see my palette that is being invaded by my little desk buddy, who is very suspicious of people. That's what he does, is he hangs out there and keeps me company. Okay, white and black. I've already got these all shaken up, so I'll put a little bit of that out. Hopefully you are not afraid of mixing colors. One thing to just get over really quick is don't be afraid to mix colors. If you mix it wrong, you can always mix it again. If you mix it too much one way, you can always come back the other way. The scariest part about mixing colors is if you decide you want to mix colors to create something, make sure you write your recipe down if you get it right, or that you save your palette. Hold on. This one's not open. So that you know what it is. Maybe leave your paints out. I'm really good at backtracking the color. So as long as I leave my palette with the color on it, that is so not black. Oh, I love that color. One of my favorite colors. Oh, you guys, if you don't have this color, this Reaper color, this is called, hold on, let me give you the number, 09022. It is called Nightshade Purple. If you don't own this color, you must have it. It is the best color to put in shadows of every kind. My little beaker is blocked right now. There we go. It's the best color to put in shadows. It's nice, cold, kind of a purpley black. Oh, it's delicious. That I don't mean eat it. Okay, so that is not black. My Reaper black actually turned up missing recently. It's probably rolled under my desk or something. So let's get a little bit of black out on the palette. A little bit of white. I put a little bit of nightshade too. Nightshade meaning the color, not the plant. All right. Then hair. So let's see. We've got the punk rock pink. We've got a blood red. And then, of course, we've got our white, which we're going to use to bring the highlights up on that. And that's gonna do a good portion of our hair. We're also going to use some of that nightshade in the recesses to deepen the shadows, maybe even a little bit of that transparent purple. If you guys haven't tried that, that's delicious too. Then the skin, it's called Muddy Olive. It is an olive green, you'll notice. Uh-oh, hold on. There it goes. Why aren't you focusing? Don't do that today. Today is not the day. Okay. All right. And then we're going to do a little bit of, let's see. We've got a deep red. A tanned skin. And fair skin. My palette seems to be acting a little funky today. I apologize. This is new palette paper, and I'm still working with it. Sometimes things just don't go my way. All right. And in the case of the eyes, we've got the black, we've got the white, and you should have this something like the fair skin. You can use ivory, you can use tan, you can use any off-white color that you want. So you pick it. The area that is, I always start with the eye area on all of them. Not the whole, not just prepping the eye. Not as in like the whole eyeball, just prepping the eye. So the first thing that I do is I paint the entire area of the eye black, and you need to include the eyelid, like as if she was wearing eyeliner sweeping. You can, if you are experienced at doing chibi eyes, feel free to reshape your eyes. There is eye shaping. There are different, there's looking up, there's looking down. But if you look at the eyelid, when you look at these pictures, let's bring that up for just a second. So one of the things that I do is I use reference art, okay? And so what you will find is, this is really helpful to you. If you go someplace and you find something that you like, by using reference art, you don't forget. So you can say, oh, I like this. So there's different expressions on chibi eyes. Notice that there's one with the sides of the eyes. As you go towards the bottom, the sides of the eyes slope down. So that makes like sad eyes. Okay, you can have serious eyes. There's the very chibi-like eyes. You can add striations. Notice, the one thing I do want you to notice about chibi eyes is how the highlights, they always have one big highlight in the top and a life light at the bottom. This is a more glamorous chibi eye, but changing the colors. Here we have an example of some pretty elaborate chibi eyes with expressions, moving the iris around. Notice again, these being so elaborate have multiple highlights. The easiest is the 2 highlights, learning to change up the shape of your highlight. But what I want you to notice on this one, hold on, this one, is the positioning and the simplicity. Notice the simplicity. It's so simple. It's like 4 colors, and it's just so easy. So when you go and you look online, you can find these different drawings of chibi eyes, and you yourself can sit down and you can practice this, and you can just paint over the eye and do it again. So this is how I learned chibi eyes from a gentleman who is very experienced in anime art. And then he recommended using different pictures that I see that I like on the internet, and maybe changing up the colors, maybe changing up the shape. On this particular picture, you will notice I think as you are looking at the top left eye that is brown, that's the surprised. So raising the eyebrow, starting from the bottom and leaving that little bit of white at the top, that's the surprised look. So you can change up the personality and the expression of any given chibi that you are working on, if you choose to. I just want you to know that those options are there. All right, so we're going to take, these eyes are pretty big, so I'm actually using a number 1. As I get down to the detail, sometimes I start with a number 2. Here's my number 2. And then I'll go down to the number 1. When I get to the detail, I definitely go for the double aught. Okay. So I'm going to take my number 1. We're going to pick up the black. And I want you to paint this whole area if you haven't already. Hang on. And I only want you to paint the area on the eyeball up to the recess. 2 coats. Let me make sure you guys are focused. Good. 2 coats. You're going to do your very best to stay within the recess, and remember that you will be coming back with skin. You can correct it. If you're really good and you got a tiny brush, you can make a very fine line for eyeliner. And remember to catch her upper eyelid, which in her case is kind of like eyeliner. You do want to thin your paint a little You don't want any brush strokes or globby paint. Thinning the paint. About the consistency of whole milk in this instance. I'm going to downsize my brush so I can do her eyelid. What is this? This says 10-aught. It is not a 10-aught. This company, this is more like a double. Coming in for that second coat. Okay, 2 coats on eyes. Eyes drying. While eyes dry. Whoop, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Okay, while eyes dry, going to number 2. And over here, we've got these 2 colors. We've got this pink. I'm going to pull a little bit of that pink out, and this red. And we're going to pull a little bit of that red out. Okay, you mix those 2 colors together. You want a color kind of in between the 2. There you go. So you're going to have kind of a reddish pink. Right around the area of a strawberry, I'd say. And we're going to block in the hair. Meanwhile, the eyes are drying. In this case, that whole milk works really good. You don't have to really thin the paint much at all. Actually, Reaper's got a pretty darn good consistency. And when it comes to the blocking part, I generally don't do a whole lot of thinning of their paint until I get to the glazing. And I absolutely do a lot of glazing. I always recommend when you're blocking in areas that are larger, or even just any area, the largest brush that you are comfortable accommodating that area with. What you should notice as you do this is you're going to see your zenithal coming through. You want to keep your, I'm going to change brushes here really quick. I'm going to go for one of my synthetics that covers more space so that I can speed it up for you guys. This is a 4. It's synthetic. It can take a beating. I keep a whole league of synthetics because they take a really good beating. And you're going to do all the areas with this. When you get up underneath the of her hair here, underneath the bottom, feel free to pick up a little bit of the plain red and come up underneath with the red. Because it's going to be a shadowed area.
Apologize for the moving of the camera. No.
This is not the neatest part. Main thing is make sure that if you end up with a whole bunch of paint like in her recesses of her braid, come back with a dry brush and pick those up so you don't lose any of your detail. It's okay to let it in the recesses. She has deep enough recesses in her hair that you don't have to really worry too much about that. But in the case of Chibis, you want to be really careful to go back and pick up. You don't want to leave the paint settle in their recesses because their details are usually so fine. Usually they have pretty good structure to the hair, though. It's the bigger part of the Chibi. Now, I know I thought that I got a mini holder ready for this. I probably should have mentioned that if you have a blow dryer, it's extremely helpful. I'm going to dry her hair super fast with a blow dryer. You're going to need at least 2 coats. I'm going to ask you to take a wee bit of that nightshade color. Notice right over there. You're going to mix it with the red and put it up underneath the base of her hair there, giving that a darker. There you go. See how it's lighter up here, darker back there. Let me get that focused in just a wee bit better for you. There you go. Okay, so that just gives a little more depth back here, maybe up underneath of there. That's you. And honestly, if you don't have that, you could mix a little colors like blackish purple, a cool black would work. You're just taming that red down a little bit to get some shadow effects of base. It's not something you're totally going to see, but yeah. Get a little shadow over here. In there. There we go. And now you can see how it's kind of already start to build, right? Light's coming from over here. Remember the zenithal highlighting? So we're like at about 2 o'clock. All right. Now, totally, while her hair is wet, if you want to, we're going to grab a wee bit of what is clear purple. It's powerful. See if you can see that. You can. There you go. I'm going to thin it. And I'm going to hit these areas. That thinning is maybe, 20%. Shadow areas. And you're just starting over here on this side. We've got some shadows because it's the opposite side of the light. Yep. It's a very, you don't have to stress that perfect stroke right yet, unless you decide to bring yours up like that. We're going to put some of that right along the middle here. Dry off the brush and pull it out a little bit like that. So a little bit more and dry off the brush. There we go. See these divots? I'm working with the divots. See them? Yeah, I'm just kind of coming in there and right now using those for the dark areas that sink in. Generally speaking, on hair, the areas that are rounded will end up being your glossy areas. And since we are dealing with animated character, the good news is we don't have to have that perfect. We just have to have it giving you that more animated effect. I'm going to come into these little curls with a little bit of that. I'm going to come right up underneath the front of her hair with a little bit of that, leaving, there's some pink in the recess. I'm going to leave that pink in the recess. Kind of like there's a shadow right there. I'm going to hit this with the blow dryer real quick. Now we're going to put that, that's the punk rock pink. She doesn't want to stay on there today. Probably because you guys are looking. All right. And I'm going to take that punk rock pink. Thin it. I'm going to say maybe 20%. I take this, it's a size 4. The brush I'm using is a size 4. I dip it in water. And we're going to go over all the areas, okay, that are not purple. As you come to the areas that are purple, just ever so lightly, feather right in. backwards. So touch the purple and drag this way. Touch the purple and drag this way. Like that. Touch the purple, drag this way. Then you will get, then dry that brush off. And if you just kind of rub those little areas, you do want a brush that's what I call an ugly brush. Don't use your good brush to push and pull paint. But if you notice, it kind of gives a sort of a faded look. They fade into one another. Okay. There's a little area back here on the back of her head. We're going to put a little light there. And then there's this little area here. We want to catch, definitely want to catch the light on that. Do you see what's happening? We want to put a little bit here. Side of brush. Okay. I'm going to roll the brush in the paint. Side of brush. The hair comes out right here. We're going to hit that. Comes out right here, side of brush again. So we can get it right on that edge. On all those high areas. Along the braid, side of brush. Right? Just patting that on there. See how that works? Okay.
Somebody says it looks very mean right now.
This is a very grumpy Chibi. This is Grumpy Chibi. I love her face. I thought her face was really cute. I chose her for her grumpy face.
And then we have a question from Ramiro saying, how long have you been painting and what's your favorite mini that you've painted? And let me know which one it is. If it's here.
So I started this about 2 years ago. Okay. Now this is going to, now just see how chunky? So chunky, anime is that chunky hair, right? Like chunky beard, right? Got a little chunky beard. They got chunky hair. Their hair is very animated looking. So to get that, I wish I had Liliana here. This is how we develop it. Now what we're going to do is, I'm thinking about that question. We're going to take a little white, and then I want you to mix a little bit of white right there into the punk rock pink until you get a color that's super light pink. And right around here, skip an area. So we're going to use the side of the brush, right? And we're going to do that. And then we're going to skip an area. And then we're going to come up here and we're going to do that. And then we're going to skip an area. And then we're going to come up here. Okay. These are all going to be painted over. I think Lady Olinder is probably my favorite that I've ever painted. Yeah. I feel like I was able to express color in it really well. I'm coming in for a second layer just to bring that white up a little bit more. Okay. Right here, side of brush. And what the side of the brush is going to do is it's just going to catch, if you notice, it just catches the top. Oop. Actually, don't touch. Don't touch. You don't want to touch your paint job. That's bad. Don't follow that. That's a GW model. Even in some of these areas where I have purple, I'm still going to come in and catch a few of these. Okay. And I'm going to lighten it even more. And I'm going to just catch a few of these with, this is plain white. Some of these areas, they're, what does the word stark mean?
Stark contrast.
Oh, yes.
Striking.
Yeah, you definitely want to keep the more that you use bold colors, the more your chibi will pop. Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to grab a little bit of that pink. I've got a little area here that I feel like this little area over here, even though it's in the shadows, we're going to cheat a little bit, and we're going to bring in a little bit of this pink. And a little bit of that light pink, just to kind of bring a little bit of more depth out on that side, even though like technically that probably wouldn't be light there. Okay, now we've got the hair pretty much blocked in. All right. And I don't know if anybody's got clear magenta on their desk, but it's a color. Okay, 09098. It was missing because it was sitting right in front of me the whole time. We will be coming for that clear magenta in a moment. First, we're going to address the face. We're going to block the face in, okay? Now, remember, while you're blocking skin, okay, that she has, she has skin here in her breast area, and she has skin here in her arm area and her hand area. I'm just going to focus on the face. Hopefully, you will be able to duplicate this. Whoop! They love to jump off that. Hopefully, you will be able to duplicate this. Hang on. I'm going to fix this problem. On your own in the future. Okay, any questions about the blocking in part of the hair?
Let you know if anybody.
Wow, Lord Zephyrus, hello. Well, I just want them to know that their questions are welcome. You're not interrupting if you ask questions. Just remember, the question you ask may be the question that somebody else was afraid to ask. Okay. All right, so now we have this going on. We are going to grab probably a number 1. I'm looking at mine. Now, different companies, their sizes vary from brush to brush, I noticed. So what is a number 1 for me may be a number 2 or even a number 0 for you. All right. And we are going to start with the blocking in of the face. Now, over here on the palette, you'll see that my palette's gotten really crazy. I've got this reddish color, then I've got this tan skin color, and then I've got this fair skin color. So what I want to do, first of all, I'm not going to use my good brush to mix paints. I try not to. I tend to end up doing it a lot, but I try not to. We're going to pull a little bit of this reddish color, which was, hold on, let me get the color right. That's deep red, okay? And you're going to pull some of this tan skin. And you're going to mix those two together, and it should look similar to kind of a pasty brick color. That's what I refer to it as. You want it to be somewhere between the two colors, as in not physically between them, but as in its shade. Okay, so that's going to be like our medium shadow tone. And what we're going to do is we're going to take that tone and we're going to paint her face this color. I'd like you to thin that. I'm going to say, in this instance, we're doing a little bit of glazing, so about the consistency of skim milk. You see there, as I pull it out, you can kind of see through it. Let me make sure that you're, is it focused? It's not really focused. No, it's not focused.
Palette?
Yeah.
Move the camera? Okay.
All right, guys, I want you to be able to see that. So you can see that you kind of see the palette through it. And we're going to go in here and we're going to glaze this over the face. It's going to be pretty thin when you first put it on. You want it that way. You want to get this first glaze on, and you want to visualize, okay? You're going to paint the whole face. Try not to paint on your eyes. And then in this area of the mouth and the nose, allow a little extra paint to settle. And the cheeks. If you have a blow dryer, notice the pink forming around the front part of the face there. I'm going to come at it again. Second time around, your glaze should look a little like this. We're going to discuss something that I discuss all the time when we are painting. I repeat myself all the time. When you are pulling, your paint is thin and you're pulling it. Wherever you pick that paintbrush up, that's where the most paint is going to lie. So in the case of like painting here with her cheeks, we want to get this on the cheeks. So we pull out there, and right at the edge where the shadow drops around the face, that's kind of where the most of your paint will be. If you're coming down the nose slope, then most of the paint's going to land right on the end of the nose. Again, with that cheek, under the eyes there, we want to get a little bit of red in there. And then we'll glaze the forehead again. All right. Let's get a wee bit of that color and get that little eyebrow. All right. Now that's going to dry. I'm going to go ahead and paint her chest in really quick. Same color. You're kind of doing the same thing. One thing you want to pay attention to on female chibis when you're doing this is the paint is going to want to collect in their cleavage. All right. And you don't want to let that happen. So you want to dry that brush off and come back and wick that paint right out of there. Otherwise, you end up with just a glob of paint right in the cleavage area, and it looks just very, very bad. It's very built up. Okay, now the face is dry, so you're going to come in for this olive green that you have. Again, you're thinning to the consistency of skim milk. Can you see that? Okay, good, we're on. Take this olive green, and this area that's under the chin, take that glaze, take the excess off on the paper towel, and that area that's in the shadow under the chin, you've got a little shadow going on over here. You've got a little shadow right around the brow where the hair is coming down. And we've got a little shadow on this side of the face because the light is on that side. So we're going to get a little bit of green right there, right underneath the chin, right underneath that bottom lip. We're going to blend it a little right at the side here. I'm going to go back for some of the skin tone, and I'm going to come in here and I'm going to pull that right onto the green. Pull this right over the edge onto the green. Right up the forehead into the green. Okay. Now you've got some very nice shadows developed in here. You may want to come back. We're going to come back and we're going to catch this area right here that obviously is a shadow with a small brush, but you don't need to do it right now. You just need to pay attention that you don't fill that recess because you're going to want that later for her eyeliner. All right, now we've got to come in here with a little bit more of this flesh tone. Grab a little bit more of the red so you can kind of deepen it and get right up here by the hairline. Dry the brush off and feather that out into a shadow. Get up underneath the chin. We got a little bit more red in this. I wet the brush and pull it out under the chin. I just added a tiny bit more of this red to that medium color that we had to deepen the shadow for around the hairline here. Going over the green. A little jawline building there. Don't panic, it's okay. It does look green right now, but it's all right. We should probably go back in there and give another layer of this to the chest. Remember that up underneath of her chin, you're going to want to put green up in there under her chin on her neck, because that's the shadow color that's developing there. Okay, now we're going to take that magenta color we were talking about, that clear magenta. Put a little bit of that out on the palette. Watch out, it's dangerous, super dangerous. Like really, really, really concentrated, okay? You're going to thin it, super thin. Am I on? There it is. Look at that. Look at that. It's like dirty water. Even. Okay. And I'm going to hit under the eye, cheek area. A little bit on the forehead right there. A little on the forehead right there. A little bit on the cheek area over here. Little nose, and I'm going to do the mouth area.
Yeah, about a half minute.
Right. Medium skin tone, tan skin tone. We're making a lighter color, and you're going to pull from the mixture that you made between, there was the dark, the medium, the light. So you made a mixture between the dark and the medium. You're going to pull a little bit, you're going to put a little bit of the medium and the light, and then a little bit of the mixture that you made from the dark and the medium, and you're going to pull those together and make a color that's a step in between. And we're going to glaze. It's nice and thin. Everything. It takes a few of those glazes. I'm going to put a little olive green right up underneath of her neck so that we can glaze that too. It takes a few of those glazes. You want to try to get it smooth. Oop, that was too much water. I was just about to tell you, don't add too much water. You want to get it up under the chin. Generally, up under the chin, you kind of want to keep that shadowed. So usually, I don't know, I'd say maybe 2. I kind of just go by a visual when I'm doing it, like to see what I think about whether it needs more under there. Eventually what happens is that the skin that you are glazing on covers all of this. And then you will take a little bit of the light and a little bit of the medium, and you will make the lightest highlight extremely thin, and you will pull towards the areas that are highlighted, like right across the brow here. It's a very small amount of paint right across the bridge of the nose here, right across the cheek here. You are going to want right along the top of the lip, again pulling towards the tip of the nose. And all of a sudden you will see the face really start to develop. You do want to be extremely careful that as you are going over your paints, that you're careful not to hit the paint when it is wet. You want to allow it that time it needs to dry, or what could end up happening is you rip your paint, and it's so disappointing, especially if you've worked really hard to get a dynamic the way you want it, and you're like, oh, I'm on, I got it. And then you rip your paint. When you get an area that maybe you look at and you say, oh, I'm not satisfied with this, you realize you can come back and you can reglaze. I want to make sure to keep a nice pink tone in her skin. I pinked up the cheeks, but I didn't get quite enough on the brow line, so I'm going to come in and glaze that a little bit more there. And just to take some of the color out of the shadows, I'm going to get a really tiny little brush, and I'm going to go for some of that, the really dark red with a wee bit. Come right in there. I will come in with a little darker color. Get right underneath of her chin. We're going to need a wee bit of a shadow underneath the chin. And you might need to build that. It's really small. They have such tiny little faces. So I'm coming under here and taking a little bit of a darker color, and then we'll glaze that out so that it smooths. But as you can see, the dynamics of the face start to build. Now, one thing I do not like to do, I don't know about you, but I hate it when I go in and I get the skin just exactly the way I want it, and then I'm going to paint the eye, or vice versa. You're going to have to make this decision on your own. And that is whether or not you want to do the eye, finish detailing the skin, or finish detailing the skin and then detail the eye. The more you glaze and blend, the smoother, oh, sorry guys. The more you glaze the skin, the more that these areas that look a little bit uneven will smooth. There's about maybe 2 more. You can see like a little line right there. That side's getting really good. See how that transitions? This side's still a little choppy. See how it's a little choppy? So probably a couple more glazes on that side. I got the brows almost. And I will still come in with my final highlights and glaze them in as well. But I've got to get the skin nice and smooth before I can come in there and get excited with highlights. All right, now I like to get the skin right about where it starts speaking to me, and then go for the eyes. I'm going to zap this real quick. Before you continue to do your blending, keep in mind letting it dry and then taking a look at it when it's dry so you can really see where the space is. Like you can see right underneath the edge of her jaw here, so that you know where the area is that you might need to blend a little bit more. All right. We're now going to come in here and we are going to take the black, and you can always clean up with skin color. So just remember, as you're doing this, you can always come back and clean up areas with skin color. So don't be shy. We do want to get a good clean look at the eye. So I'm going to reestablish my relationship with her beautiful eyeliner here. Clean that up. And then we're going to paint this with a very fine brush, the whole eyeball white. 2 times. Not white, white. That's what that off-white. Whoop, it doesn't want to stay on that either. Okay. All right. There's a little shadow where she's expressed. So she's got, see how there's a little shadow underneath of each of those eyes. You could put eyeshadow if you wanted. Just saying. All right. I have a very specific brush that I use for that. But first, we're going to come in with, whoop. I'm telling you, let's lay her down there. Okay. Oh, look at that. All right. A wee bit of white. And in this case, I'm going to use a little bit of the light flesh tone. You guys can use an ivory. My favorite is a color called pale yellow. It's a little tiny bit of yellow in white. So if you guys want to use, put a little bit of yellow in a white, that's a good choice too. A little bit of khaki in white is good. Mainly, you just don't want a stark white eyeball. It really does make a difference. The eyeball actually pops better if it's not terribly stark white. I find that the terribly stark white looks wrong. Like when we look at it, we don't recognize it. All right. And now we're going to paint just the area inside. This is the wrong brush. Hold on while I want to get a different brush. There we go. We want to paint the area just inside the recess. So you want to try not to get any on the skin. Okay. If you can, but you can clean up with skin color. A lot of people say that painting the eyeball before you start the skin is the way to go. I think it's a matter of preference. You are going to need 2 respectable coats, but white is kind of a lethal color to deal with. And so I can understand why they would want to do that. You do want to cover the black. A lot of people say, oh, well, why would I paint it black before I paint it white? And I will tell you, we've done the chibi eyes with a lot of people. And everybody seems to find that painting the entire eyeball black and then painting it white is the simplest route to go. You may have to do a little experimenting for yourself to find out if that's true for you. Your first coat is not going to cover it. You should make sure that you thin your paint to where it is smooth, and you should find that your second or third, if necessary, coat will cover it. If you are just shy of the line when you are doing this, you will have eyeliner on your chibi all the way around the eye. Not all models are created equal, so you may find that one eye, and this is always a little bit disappointing, but you may find that one eye is much bigger than the other. And if you find that, you can alter that with paint. I have had to do that many times. All right. Now the question is, do you want me to stay on this one and we can create the eyes on that, or this one is ready? We got 20 minutes. So we're going to pop from this one to this one. All right. So here we have our eyes. I do not know which one you were painting. Uh-oh. Hang on. Geek's moving my camera around so I can't focus, you guys. The tech is getting excited with the
I was trying to zoom in for you. And I did it wrong again.
Okay, there we go. All right. Now, I am going to do your basics. You guys can position them if you want to. I am not going to do striations today because I do know that striations is with all the little lines, that's very advanced. So we're just going to do what is very basic, okay? Which is starting from the top and coming to the bottom. So it's like a horseshoe. And we are going to use transparent blue and baby blue. In reality, if you have a dark blue and a light blue and you've got white on your palette, and black, you're good to go. I am using this LED blue is the color I'm using. I really liked it. And I thought that it was also going to really be dynamic with her pink hair. So the first color that we are going to paint will be the primary color of the iris to create a base for the chibi eye. In this case, we are doing, like I said, basic looking at you chibi eyes. I'm going to take the LED blue and I'm going to, wait a minute, let me see if you guys are on that. And I'm going to mix a little bit of that transparent blue into it to create a secondary blue. If you have a triad, basically as you can see here, we are using 3 colors, a nice deep blue, a medium blue.
I don't mean to interrupt too much, but the cameras have shifted so I can no longer see your palette.
Uh-oh. Thank you.
No problem. Why, it's just like it. There you go. Perfect.
There you go. Okay.
Now you're back.
Okay, so as you can see over here, right, this is where we're looking now, right there. We've got 3 blues. So if you have a triad, you can do that. I'm going to recommend to have a clear blue somewhere because we are going to glaze the eyes. Also a very high gloss varnish. So the highest gloss varnish, eyes are always super glossy because, you know, they're wet. So here we have these. And if you have a triad, you can go ahead and use that. If you have a light blue and a dark blue, you can just mix the blue and the medium blue, and there you go. So we are going to take the medium blue and we are going to, smaller than we think we need to, we will create the U of the eye. Generally speaking, a chibi's eye is going to be about 50% of the iris size. But we want to make sure that we don't overdo it. We want to get those eyes just the right size. And so what I do is I start a little bit smaller and I work my way out. So I add little lines of paint. Her eyeball is pretty round, so you're going to need a horseshoe won't work. She needs a rounder iris with the top cut off at the top of the eye. We're going to bring that eye in by moving the color closer to her nose. I am going to do one eye to make sure we have enough time. I'm going to tell you what though, it's hard to match up an eye if you do them one at a time. I'm just letting you know in advance. I'm gonna do that because they are very tedious, and I want to make sure that you guys get to see all that we do for it. Okay, so here we have her eye, and she's looking straight ahead. I've moved the iris a little closer. She has a pretty big eye. Look how far back her eye goes, right? Well, we are not You don't want iris in that because she's looking this way. So that's the first coat. I'm going to zap it. I've got this thinned over here. I'm going to put a second coat on the iris so that I make sure I've got adequate color built up. Okay, so you want nice deep color. Okay, once you have the 2 coats on your iris, you're going to want to go for the pupil. Okay, now I had planned on using this nightshade color for the purple. I mean for the pupil, for the purple. I don't know if it will be black enough, but we're sure going to give it a try. I haven't tried it yet. I really love the color, and I thought maybe it might add an extra dynamic. So in doing the pupil, what I do is I take a look at the eye. We kind of want the pupil to be in the center of the iris. That just makes sense. And I'm going to estimate that, and I'm going to put a dot right where I think the center is, and then I'm going to look if I got it right. Now, if I didn't get it right, then I just move it, because the pupil is going to take over this whole area. Once I get it to where it's pretty centered, I'm going to start from that center and go up and bring the pupil under the eyelid. And then I'm going to make the pupil really big. Because chibis have such big pupils. Trying not to eliminate all of the iris and covering part of the pupil. In this case, I kind of want her to have that beautiful eyeliner over the eye kind of a look. So we get a little sultry with her. I've painted the top of this eyelid with a very light blue. Right, then you've got the pupil in. Okay, now the object of that is to try to get as best you can equal distances as you build. And I put the pupil in the center, and my line from the pupil, I build up first, and then I come down until I've got about equal distance of this iris all the way around. Pupils on chibis oftentimes tend to be really large. Sometimes they are not. It depends on what style of eye you are making. I love the ones with the large pupils. Now, once I have done that, I will go for the lighter blue. In that blue, remember that on her, the light is coming from the same direction as the other one. Be very careful that when you thin that paint, you don't have too much on your brush and that you have a small brush. In the lower portion of the iris, I will paint a line of this light blue. I will go back and I will pick it up again. It dries extremely quickly. And I will do it again. Kind of going up the eye a little bit. Notice that I've kept the light off the bottom portion of the pupil. Okay? Now I'm going to go for the clear blue. This is the hardest part. I'm going to really try to knock this out before we have to part. This is the dark line around the outside of the pupil. All right. You do not have to do this. You do not. If it is one of those things, I recommend don't try to make lines. First of all, don't try to make long lines. I'm sorry. Short little bursts. You're going to probably get a little bit in the white of the eye. You come back to clean that up. And I have to break out a color that I don't have on my palette right now because of whose eye this is. Really quick, I do know what color it is though, so hold on. So I'm going to show you what I did, the mistake. Okay, see at the bottom of the eye, there's a little bit of blue out of sync. Okay, we don't want that. So if that happens, you get a very, very fine detail brush and a little bit of what was your base iris color. Make sure that if you're doing an iris color, I always recommend that you either really know the mix well or you use something pre-mixed. And then you got to go in there and pick that up. It is seriously tedious. I don't like it when I mess up on chibi eyes. Eyes in general. This camera doesn't like to really be, there we go. All right. So now you've got your dark line. Now you're going to use your brush as touching, just like little tiny. Go back for that light blue. Very, very tiny. Right along the bottom, because you got the light coming in from over here. So on the opposite side of your light direction, take that light blue and build a little bit more light blue in the eye right there. You really want to get crazy with it, take a little bit of that dark blue that you made the ring and go right up by the eyelid. And right on the iris, make the very top of the iris by the eyelid the dark color that makes the circle around the eye. When you're all done with that, a brush that doesn't have too many small hairs but still holds a good tip is the best for your highlights. Your highlights, bright white is awesome. You can tone it down with a really, really bright gray.
10 minutes, Kim.
I like a tiny bit of blue in it. I actually, in this, I mixed a little bit of that nightshade color in pure white. Oh, it's stunning. So that's going to be our highlight color. And when you make your highlights, you're going to come directionally, and you want to make sure when you make your highlights that you do your highlights on the same side. So big highlights are going to be in the top. So if the light's coming from this side of her, then you're going to put both your highlights there on both eyes. Same thing. If your light's coming from down here, big highlights down here, but you don't want one big highlight on the right and one big highlight on the left, or she looks cross-eyed. So you want to get them the same directional. There's 2 highlights for the easiest eye, 3 highlights if you want to add a little extra dimension. All right. All right. You guys are in focus, and we're going to go in for the big highlight. Don't get up underneath the eyelid. You want it to be on the round of the eyeball. They make this little tool for making dots on fingernails that you can buy that will make a perfect circle every time. All right, that's her first highlight. Opposite of that, think light going through the eye. You're going to make the life light. We call the life light. I call the life light. I don't know if everybody calls it the life light. It's going to be much smaller. Well, now I'm going to show you something. Let's just say you say that, and it ends up bigger than you want it. Pupil color. Oh, that is a delicious color. I am absolutely in love with that color. I think I gotta get another bottle already. Okay. This is not the usual brush I do highlights with, but I don't like the hairs on the other one. There we go. Okay, and then I'm going to take my like 2 hair brush, okay? And I'm going to take, whoop, 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 no water. I'm going to take like just that really super stark white. There we go. Okay. Hang on just a second. I think I got a tiny little hair on my brush that just touched somewhere I don't want it. I am critical. Oh, that's much better. All right. There we go. Focusing in for you. Now, the magic. The magic is the highest gloss I can find on the market besides resin. That's my next step, is to coat them in resin. Oh. High gloss, only the pro grade. Do not be fooled by the student grade. You want to get the pro grade for sure, because it is not the same. But watch, I want you to see this eye, what it looks like now. Now we are going to go in there and we're going to grab that varnish. You want to get it all the way into the recess of her eye. It's a waterline. Three coats of varnish. Small brush, 3 coats, and try not to get the varnish. If you do get the varnish like on the skin or on her face or whatever, then you come back with your matte varnish when you're sealing, and just take the matte varnish and line just right over where you get it on her skin. Because if you wanted her to look like she was crying, you could actually put that glossy varnish on, on the face, and it would look like tears.
Somebody said so many layers on the face.
Yes, it's what makes the skin look really cool and smooth, I think. But definitely, well, the eye is built, the varnish builds up and creates like a glass-like effect to it. And eyes are generally very shiny and reflective. I spend a lot of time on the faces and the hair because it is predominant, and their weapon, like if they've got a really big, fancy, sexy weapon. But look at that eye. Look how shiny it is. This camera doesn't like you to be right in its face. It won't make it as crispy.
Because the Zoom meeting loses some color and some definition. So let them know that it'll be on YouTube. Yes.
So this, in case you guys couldn't keep up or didn't get a question in that you wanted to ask or something, we will have this video up on YouTube for you, as well as I believe that Reaper is running it through the weekend if you guys want to come back in. And if you would like to, if you don't have anything going on after 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, you can also join me where we will be using the Reaper paints and picking up where we left off on her. And you will see, do you notice the difference in the skin? Right? So these layers of smoothing and blending those highlights in and glazing over the colors that we create as the shadow then become this. They probably will not be exactly the same color. She's going to be a more strawberry colored girl. She's a more mocha colored girl. But just so that you know, you guys, after 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow, then I will be taking these Reaper miniatures, and I am going to try to sit down here and mimic this eye. I do know that when you make the eyes, if you make one iris and then the other iris, and then you even them up, you have room for correction. When you've made one eye and then you're trying to duplicate it on the other side, that is a true challenge, but it will make you very good at eyes. It will. So
I also posted a link.
thank you, Jessica. I'm glad that you appreciate it. This is a simple eye. Like, this is really a simple eye. Once you get the math of this down, and go get some. Now, this is not, I am looking at a pair of blue eyes, but this is not reference art. This is my art. So this is the way I like to make my simple chibi eyes. The complicated chibi eyes are like his, right? Those are the human-like eyes, and they have like lines. And you'll notice his pupil is smaller, and his iris has more space on his face. It has to do with the shape of the eye. See how he's almond-shaped eyes? And this one is round-shaped eyes. So on this one, we could almost get away with human eyes, but she's really grumpy, so I'm going to make her like, she's making this really grumpy face, so I'm going to make her looking up like that, like, oh, I'm so mad you pissed me off, you know, that kind of thing, because she's grumpy. She actually has a very kind face, and so I thought, okay, we can make the more sultry eyes on her.